them. In life, you have to trust someone or something, but this trust was stupid.
Norint išvengti blogesnio, kadangi 44 metais rugsėjo 8 užėjus ant...
I was arrested when I was 17. I was found with weapons and no permit. When the Germans were retreating, they left a lot of guns and ammunition behind them in the trenches. So me and my friends, we collected everything we could get our hands on and stored it all in one place. A couple of months later, the Russians arrived. The KGB, with local informers, arrested us for having these guns. The youngest of my friends was 13 years old. I was interrogated, tried, and sentenced to 5 years in prison in Vilnius. Later, I was transported to a slave labor camp. After prison, when I came back home, my father didn't think I would survive because I had lost so much weight due to starvation. Also, the Soviets wanted me to register for the army, so I started to hide in the forest. And I became friendly with the partisans who lived there. I wanted to join them, but they said no, it was too dangerous. I was young, and I liked these guys in uniform. It was very romantic, and I kept pestering them. They did trust me because I had spent time in the slave labor camp. So when it became clear that I was going to be arrested again by the Soviets, they let me join.
The partisan movement literally went underground after the Soviets sent their special KGB soldiers into Lithuania. They wanted to eliminate all military resistors. We dug these bunkers at first on farms, then later in the forests only. That's how we got the name, the Forest Brethren. We built these bunkers along rivers and streams so we could walk around without leaving footprints. Here we set up rather sophisticated communication stations. We also published many different kinds of newsletters for public distribution. The partisans wrote and published our present constitution in these bunkers. We never dreamed we would ever see the day when it became the rule of law. But our dreams and determination really kept us going up until the late 50s. After that, we were all either killed or in prison. Then the Soviets could do whatever they wanted. But we slowed the Soviets down, and later we became the inspiration for the dissidents of the 70s and 80s.
The leaders of the resistance, and they opened me to the possibility of more concrete fight, and I went inside.
Man rezistencija buvo daug įdomesnis dalykas negu plaukimas pasroviui. Man ir dabar kartais, nors jau dabar žinoma amžius.
I was a resistor later on during the occupation. For me and my friends, resistance was more interesting than just going with the flow. And so I chose the life of a dissident. Of course, at the beginning, you don't expect that it will cost you much, like your freedom, for you and your family. But under the Soviets, any kind of dissent was met with terrible reprisals. And this was up to the very end, even under Gorbachev. I was about 16 years old when I started my underground activities. At first, I took part in illegal discussions and meetings. We would read forbidden Lithuanian literature and discuss our history. Some of us would walk around Vilnius going to all our important national monuments and talking about what they meant to us. This was all considered antisocial behavior by the Soviets. It was illegal to do this. Eventually, I became involved in the creation of an underground press, where I worked with older, more experienced people who knew our history and literary traditions very well. I was good at typing and editing. I would go to the house of a dissident and bring back all sorts of stories and articles I had copied down in my own handwriting. So if I was caught and arrested on the way home, no one else would be implicated. Then I would type them up and drop them off to another dissident who would print up copies for distribution.
Lenin and Stalin were expert at using all the tools of mass propaganda, from colorful posters to great public rallies. They used these to promote their own power and communicate the success of the communist revolution. But the gap between the glowing promises and the reality that the Russian people lived with every day, famine, shortage of goods, police arrests, and the many failures of the system, started causing popular discontent. So the propaganda was now turned against dissent and dissenters. People were warned not to criticize the Soviet state and were encouraged to get rid of anyone who did. This led to the arrest and condemnation of millions of people to jail, exile, the Gulag slave labor camps, even death.
The government came to precinct number 58 to cast their ballots. From that precinct, Shelukov, a Moscow metal worker, was elected. Voroshilov, Kaganovich, Molotov, Stalin, Mikoyan.
Part of the Soviet propaganda system involved a bizarre attempt to present a public face guaranteeing due process and universal civil rights. But in reality, the government was accountable to no one and did what it wanted. People learned that there was no place for free expression, dissent, or disagreement.
During these hours, the results of the elections were being summed up throughout the country. 99% of the electorate took part in the elections throughout the Soviet Union, while the participation in Moscow was 99.99%.